The date is Wednesday, March 14th, 2025. Commissioner Buzz, I'm going to hold off for a minute.
Yeah, give me a second to figure out. This doesn't usually connect to the audio.
And aren't we all supposed to mute if we're not speaking? Even us?
Do a little test.
Test.
How about now?
Please sign in.
All right. Perfect. Yeah, and there was a request from,
David,
from local scene to mute our microphones when we're not talking because of getting feedback. So I guess do your best to
Will do.
figure that out.
So we're going to start again, and the time is 6:33. The date is Wednesday, May 14th, 2025. Commissioners Bozartiano and Brian Payne are absent. I'm assuming that Commissioner Jim Franklin is absent as well. If he signs in, we will let you know. Are there any more virtual or absent? No, or the rest of us are here. So I'm going to now open the meeting and take a roll call. I'm Kalina Vendetti, and I'm here, and Doc McFarlane.
Here.
And Megan Hickey.
Here.
And Marilyn Cazordo.
I'm here.
Very good. Please note, we're doing a hybrid meeting, and that's with in-person and virtual attendance. If a member of the virtual public would like to make comments during a public hearing, please use the raise hand function on Zoom, and you'll be assigned a speaking time. If you're listening in via telephone dial-in, press star 9, and that will raise your hand. Then press star 6 to unmute yourself. This meeting is being recorded by the local scene, and we're very grateful to them. And a record of this meeting will be posted on the local scene website as soon as they are able. Anyone interested in making an audio or video recording of this meeting should notify me at this time. Great.
Got a sign-in sheet right there, guys?
As an additional announcement, Kingston's Open Space Committee is still seeking a new member. The committee assists conservation in overseeing the management and use of conservation properties to help all of us better access and utilize these resources in a positive way. This is an opportunity for a resident to assist in implementing the town's open space plan, help improve parking and trails, and identify future conservation and passive recreation priorities in town, among other benefits. You may inquire by calling the Conservation Department at 781-585-0537 or by emailing Juliana Denham at dengistonma.gov. That's jdenham@kingstonma.gov. Are there documents to sign?
There are not.
Great. If you've signed in, that's great. If you haven't, please do. So we're going to move on to action items. I'm going to open a public meeting to discuss the request for a certificate of compliance for 23 Spruce Street. Do you have anything to say, Matt?
Yeah. Yes, this has been kicking around for a while. There was an issue first with the as-built not showing that the conservation posts were installed in the wrong locations, and when we got an updated as-built, it showed that the lawn extended further than it was supposed to.
Okay.
So what was supposed to be mitigation area was lawn. So we're waiting on hearing anything back from them on that, because basically they would have to make it right and then show an as-built that complies with the permit. So this was, the last communication was March 27th. I haven't heard anything on this. The commission can either kick it down the road or they can deny the request for COC and they can refile when they're ready.
Is there a representative here from 23 Spruce Street? Well, what do the commissioners have to say about this? Any comments?
You said your last communication was when?
March 27th?
March 27th.
And they know they're on the agenda for tonight.
Yeah. I may have spoken to him on the phone a day or two after the 27th, but it was all around the same time. It's been a while.
You have an opinion on that?
I'm one of 4 people, of course I have an opinion. I mean, I'm not looking to be punitive, but this has really been dragging on, so.
6 weeks.
You need to turn your mic on there.
Yeah, that's going to be a
I know,
thing
I know.
with this new setup.
No, what I said was, I'm not looking to be punitive, but at the same time, this has been dragging on and on. So I suppose we could give them one last shot at it and push it to the next meeting. And knowing that if in fact it doesn't work out for that meeting, then we would deny it. That's my feeling.
Well, I have a question. What are the consequences of denying it if they've been scoffing at it till now? They can reapply, right? It doesn't.
Not terribly punitive to deny a COC request. They have to refile and pay the fees again.
Mhm.
It's not a ton.
Is there anyone in the room who has any comments about this Spruce Street issue? No?
Does anybody else on the commission have comments?
Anyone else here?
I would agree with Marilyn.
To just push it forward?
2 weeks, and then we'll deny it then.
Okay. So do I have a motion to continue this then?
I'll make that motion.
All right. Got a motion, we got it seconded. Dot?
Aye.
Aye. Megan?
Aye.
Colleen is an aye. Buzz, not here. Marilyn?
Aye.
All right, so we'll put this on for the next meeting and see what happens then. I'll now open a public meeting to discuss the request for determination of applicability, that's RDA, for 58 off Boundary Street. This is for the proposed construction of a second-level unattached deck and repair to the existing roof within the buffer zone to coastal wetland resource areas. What have you got to say, Matt?
We have an applicant here if you'd like to hear from them, or if she'd like to speak. If she absolutely doesn't want to, I could give you the breakdown of what's going on here. It is a pretty,
You want to hear from them first? Applicant?
Matt can speak for me, should I?
I don't mind in this case. It's a pretty small project.
Okay.
So the commission permitted through a DOA the replacement of the existing ground level deck, I think 2 years ago. And now, let me see, I can share screen on the Zoom. Just looking to do a second-story deck over the roof. And the only portion of the project that would touch the ground are the support beams. And they would be in existing lawn area.
Do you want to add anything to that?
Is the home right here?
If you're going to speak,
Oh.
I hate to say it, but you have to come
I
up
have to go up.
to get on the record. Yeah, it'll record you.
Yes, I understand.
And just identify yourself for the record. Thank you.
Maureen McKinnon, 58 off Boundary Street.
Mhm.
This is the home shown. Actually, we've been in the house for 24 years. And when we did buy the home, it had these doors, a sliding door. I have since replaced that sliding door, but the insurance company has referred to it as the door to nowhere. And I'm in a little bit of trouble with them because you can open the slider and there's just the roof of the three-season porch there. So Because the roof is at a slanted angle, the deck would have to be straight across. And I don't want to say it's a simple thing, but it's a deck outside of that door. And it would give us a beautiful view, and I'd love to see it be done. If the deck cannot be done, I do have an idea for Plan B, which would be just a small Juliet balcony type thing that would probably be butted directly against the house and wouldn't affect over the roof or anything like that.
If you can see right there, that's on the adjacent property, looking at that from a different angle, what we just saw. And then there's an overlay on the next page showing what the project would look like, overlaid like that. So you have a deck on top of the roof, and then you have 1, 2, 3, 4 supports that come down onto what is now existing lawn area. We have specs on it. TimberTech composite decking, railings at 36-inch height, deck dimensions 21 feet by 9 feet, joist 2 by 8, space 16 on center, and 4 beams 4 by 4 inch and 4 beams 6 by 6 inch. I really didn't see anything with this project that I thought would require any further permitting. It's pretty light in its disturbance. I mean, it really only touches the ground in those few spots on existing lawn area, so I don't know that any of the setbacks or anything would really apply here that would require an NOI.
Okay.
So unless anybody has any questions or concerns, I think issuance of a -3 DOA would be appropriate. You could require erosion controls to be installed at the limited disturbance before work begins, but again, I don't know that that would be terribly necessary on this. I don't think there's going to be ground disturbance.
Any comments from the commission?
Were you looking for confirmation that the 2023 project?
Yeah, Juliana did the site visit, I believe, on Monday, and confirmed that the existing deck had been replaced and that it seemed to have been replaced within the same size that it was supposed to be.
Any other questions or comments?
Nope.
Do I hear a motion to approve the request? Issuing a -3 deal. Oh, well, first, as members of the public, would you mind signing in if you don't mind right there at the door? Are there comments from the members of the public here or online?
Nope.
No. All right. Does anybody want to make a motion on this?
I'll make a motion.
All right, have a second? Motion is to approve the request, issuing a -3 determination of applicability.
Second.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion, seconded twice. Going to take a vote on that. Dot?
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
Cleanis and I. Marilyn?
Aye.
All right, that motion passes.
Good. We can move forward, huh?
You bet.
Thank you.
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you for coming in. All right, I'm going to now open a public meeting to discuss, what about the time?
I think it's hearing time. Just want to confirm. Yeah. Time for the first hearing.
All right, we're going to move beyond this meeting. Move beyond this meeting. We'll have the hearings and come back to this. I'm going to open a hearing for the notice of intent for the proposed construction of an addition to a single-family house in place of an existing deck and reconstruction of the existing dwelling on the existing foundation, including addition of a second story. Do you have any comments, Matt? This is 35R East Avenue.
We haven't had a presentation on this one yet.
You want to hear from the, somebody hear from that?
Yes.
Come on up, identify yourself for the record, please, and tell us what you have to say.
My name is Rick Savant with Stenbeck and Taylor. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Yes, so we have a proposed residential project here down in Rocky Nook. It's located at 35R East Ave. I don't know if you can have the plan up, Matt, or I know it's working on.
Trying to grab it up now.
Okay. The homeowners are here, just came in. So this project, existing single-family home, it's at a direct waterfront location right on Kingston Bay. What we're proposing is do some pretty significant renovations to the home and replace an existing deck with a small addition. The property itself, as you can see, is right on the bay. It's generally slopes from west to east towards the bay. It's got some wooded areas, some brushy areas, some lawns, some mature trees, and also a concrete seawall right against the bay. Beautiful spot there. The home itself was built in 1940. It's made from concrete block. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to get out there. I know Matt has. I've met him out there myself, but it's in need of updates. It's not insulated. It's built out of, like I say, CMU concrete block. The main goal of the project is to get a more modernized structure there. We're planning on tearing it down as little as we need to get, but we're probably going to be coming down for the foundation, but no excavation. We're going to rebuild on the existing foundation on the same footprint with a new, modern lumber construction on the house. At that time, we're also proposing a new second-story addition above the footprint. No changes to that. The only change you can see is on the bay side. There's an existing impervious deck there that we're proposing a addition to the home. Basically, replace that deck in a very similar footprint with a living space to the home. The existing deck is supported on sonotubes with posts. It's elevated about 4 feet off the ground, roughly. The new addition would be in a very similar layout. It would be proposed on helical screws and be elevated at the same height to match the floor height of the existing house. We've got some resource areas here that we're dealing with, as you're probably well aware, right on the bay. We've got a salt marsh out there. We've got a coastal beach. We've got a coastal bank. In this case, there's a seawall, so the coastal bank is right at the seawall. We've also got land subject to coastal storm flowage on the property. You can see that blue line that's very near the home. The existing deck is possibly touching it. It's very tough to tell. Imagery can only get so good. But we're proposing with the new structure to move it, narrow it slightly and move it slightly to the south to gain a couple of feet from that FEMA flood line there, or LSCSF. The buffers are all shown on the plan. Because of our proximity to all these resource areas, we fall within the 50. There's really very little part of the property that's not within the 50-foot no disturb. So in order to do this project, we are requiring some relief from the bylaw, which I've requested. Where we need relief from the distance, the minimum distance for open piles is 40 feet from the resource area. We can make it from the beach and the coastal bank. Obviously, the 50-foot buffer from the land subject to coastal storm flowage is really what we're seeking that section relief from. And also, I did make a request for relief from Section 5 for wall-type foundations. We're not constructing any new foundations, but I just wanted to be safe where we're working and possibly tearing it down to the foundation itself. I just wanted to be covered to rebuild that in the same footprint, so I asked for that relief also because we were working in the 50. A big part of this project is making some improvements to the site. When the house is reconstructed, we're going to be adding collecting the roof runoff into these dry wells that are shown. Currently, the house has no gutter system or any collection of any type. The water just sheets off onto the lawn and heads towards the bay, following the slope. So that's the first kind of level of defense there, is to collect the roof runoff in those dry wells. The second, maybe bigger portion of it is we had ECR prepare a planting plan and a mitigation plan for the site. We're proposing some turf removal adjacent to the seawall to help treat and protect the bay from any stormwater that might run down there. Here's Brad's plan. You can see we've got a large area in green along the seawall. We'll be doing turf removal there and planting. It comes out to about 1,050 square feet of mitigation right against the seawall. And also you can see that large area of non-native invasive plant management that we're proposing also. 2,600 square feet in that area. So there's quite a bit of work to be done there, but we're just trying to take a good step forward to improve the site and protect the resource areas. Those are the main improvements that we're proposing. I'll do my best to answer any questions you might have about the project.
Thank you. Matt, do you have any comments?
Sure. And just so I don't forget, because I don't even know if I wrote this down, but I don't think we have conservation posts on the plan yet. So on the landward side of all of those green areas, you'd want to see conservation posts so that they're not just garden beds. So we may need a plan update on that, unless it just comes down to an agreement. We did a site visit May 8th, so I did take a look at the property. We received formal variance requests, as Rick said, and they were, in my opinion, sufficient to meet the standards of KWPR variance requirements. Property right now is at 11.4% impervious coverage within jurisdiction, which is less than the 15% limit in KWPR, and the proposal plans to reduce coverage to 10.8%. I haven't confirmed those calculations, but they do appear generally correct. From the site visit, the existing deck does appear generally to be impervious. There is no spacing between most of the boards. So we're not looking at a overcount of the impervious there. ECR submitted a mitigation proposal focusing on 3 activities: management of invasive plants in the natural area that you see to the north of the property, and then removal of turf and establishment of a native plant buffer at the top of coastal bank, and monitoring and management for 2 years. The area, methods, and species seem appropriate to the situation. It should be noted that the invasive plant removal calls for herbicide use, though through targeted methods unlikely to have wetland or off-target impacts. Proposal calls for no excavation. House will be built on the existing foundation and the addition to be supported on helical screws. The increase in height from the new second story would be unlikely to cause impacts, as the salt marsh is a sufficient length from the structure. The only sort of thing on this, before I get into recommendations, is if during the process of construction or preparation it's determined that the foundation needs to be replaced, this permit wouldn't cover that. So that may be something that should be discussed as far as, I mean, it does definitely, it changes the project a little bit if you are doing that. Now you do have ground disturbance and you do have more need for protection during construction, but that should be discussed anyways. I had a question about what size storm the leaching pits were designed for, whether there should be any provision for stockpile of ESC. Probably not if there's no excavation, but if there is planned to be excavation, then that would be something that you should see. If you're turfing off on top of coastal bank, you know, depending on how that work is done, there could be a need for it there. Not necessarily. Again, it depends on the methodology. Rick said there were no plans for tree removal, other than there are 1 or 2 trees that are very, very close to the house that look like they're not in great shape, that also appear that you would need to cut half the tree off in order to put a second story on. So I would recommend that as part of this permitting process, that any of those trees be called out for removal so they don't need additional permitting. Otherwise, those could be done through admin review from a separate permit. As I've been saying, for any properties in the area, this is just landward of Mass Shellfish Growing Area, CCB 43.3, currently active and used by the public with commercial oyster beds at the outer reaches. Every effort should be made to limit runoff in this area, especially for purposes of protecting eelgrass beds. In this case, I think this does a great job of trying to mitigate that and improving current conditions by getting that mitigation on the top of the seawall. The request generally appears to meet the standards of WPA and KWPR, except for where the variants were requested. Buffer planting and stormwater management proposed as mitigation for the variance request appear sufficient, provided that the stormwater features will function. Again, I don't know necessarily what size storm those are designed for, or, whether there will be issues putting those in, if there aren't test pits dug for them or anything like that. So I'd say barring any commission concerns, I'd recommend issuance of OOCs with special conditions, and I have a whole list of special conditions whenever you're ready to discuss them.
Commissioners have any comments on this?
Just to make note, as you said, if in fact something changes, that they would come back to you. I put it on, that's all.
I think, I don't know how big of a rush they're in right now. Again, I do think generally that this shows a sufficient amount of mitigation for what the ask is. I think it does need two variances, both based on structure setbacks. However, there is already a house there. The house could be lived in right now. This isn't something that needs to be done, and generally looking at this, I think this project improves over current conditions. I think if somebody is to live in that structure right now, you're not protecting the wetlands as good as you are with all of this mitigation in place. And I don't think other than going up, you're not really doing anything here that's significantly impacting the resource areas beyond what the mitigation provides. I think amendments are always messy and time-consuming and difficult and frustrating for the applicant. So I think if there's a thought that that's even a possibility, that once you get in there, you may need to redo the foundation, that it's beneficial to have that dealt with through this permit. And I don't know that it's as simple as just adding that in as a condition or something. I think you would want something, at least maybe notes on the plan or something. As I said, you do, I think, already need to show conservation posts at the edge of the mitigation area. It could be easy enough to add a note on there that says that if the foundation needs to be replaced, here is the process that will be followed, and have the commission review that language and see if that's sufficient. At that point, special conditions could detail anything else that the commission feels needs to be in there. Just because that does then, if you go and you dig the foundation and then you have to wait and you get huge rainstorms and you have soil stockpiles, it does change the complexity.
Can you add that as a condition, or is that something that we should include in the approval?
I think you would at least want to see a note on the plan on that before. I think you'd want to review the language, really. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that's a good idea. We're not anticipating that, but I understand we're digging up a house that was built in the 40s. It has been looked at by a contractor at the foundation, and we think that we can. But I can certainly add a note that if something arises during the work and we realize we can't reuse the foundation, then we're going to have to modify the permit and come back and review that with the commission for sure. It would require a totally different level of work than what we're proposing now. We hope you don't have to do that.
It may be beneficial to have I don't think you need a whole separate plan page, but if you had maybe an inset or something that shows where the erosion control would be laid out, given the need to do that.
Yeah,
You
so
know that.
we do have erosion control on there, a limit
Oh,
of
that's
work
true, yeah.
line.
Sorry about that.
It does wrap around the site,
Yeah.
even though we weren't proposing, well, we're excavating for the dry wells, of course, so there is some work for that, so.
Yeah.
We did show up for that, it shows light on this image here, but I didn't bring around the mitigation area, as you mentioned, Matt, like maybe when they get into that, they might have to do their own type of erosion control, possibly. I didn't anticipate that, but so I purposely left it open so they could work in those areas. But we do have that shown on the plan, which I thought would be good just to have in place, whether we have to dig up the foundation or not.
The mitigation area, I think you could get away without it depending on the process. I think if
Right.
you can get, everything in and get everything wood chipped quickly, then I don't think there's necessarily a need. 12-inch silt sock, is that spec'd on this?
Yes, yep,
Okay. Yeah, then I think maybe just a note on the plan should be sufficient. I think if you're digging the foundation, then stockpile is necessary, and detail about how you're dealing with soil stockpiles. So I think you want to have an ESC stockpile on site, and I think you want to detail how soil's being dealt with.
right,
Is it being removed from the site right away? Is there
Sure.
a stockpile location and a spec on how that's going to be dealt with as far as covering it or getting silt fence around it or something like that?
right. But really, I completely agree with what you're saying, Matt. We don't feel we'll need it, but I think it's a good time to address it, right? We don't know exactly what's under there. It looks good.
Yeah, I
But
think
cover it with a note and,
we have a 1-week policy on information for continuances, so if you could get me that information 1 week from now, then we'd still be talking about this on May 28th. So it delays you 2 weeks in getting your permit, but in the small chance that you actually need to dig the foundation up and then you needed an amendment, you'd be months out at that point.
right. So you're talking about modifying it now and addressing how that will be dealt with if in fact we have to replace the foundation.
I think that makes the most sense. I think if you could just get, show the conservation posts on the plan for the
Yep.
mitigation area and add a note detailing how the process is going to go.
Right.
Should the foundation have to be replaced. That way the commission gets to review that language,
Mm-hmm.
add any conditions they feel necessary based on that language. And then, it looks like at that point, everything would be good for the 28th.
And Matt, did you have a comment about the height of the posts?
Did I?
Yeah.
It's in the conditions. Sorry, I
Yeah.
didn't get to any special conditions yet, but we may.
Well,
if we're-
were you talking about the posts?
Yeah. So that's a good catch on that, because the plan shows the way that for some reason they used to do conservation posts here, 3 feet in the ground, 1 feet up. Everything we do now is 2 and 2.
Yeah, that must be on another plan or something, Matt. I did see that note, but we probably should have had them on there, but we don't have conservation posts shown on the plan at all.
Really?
But,
Well, that's true. That makes sense, because you don't have conservation posts.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry, let's go.
What type of for the mitigation area, spacing wise, when you see there, either end, a couple,
It's typically 50 feet,
right?
but in situations where it's kind of funky shaped, which I think this one is, wherever it's appropriate to,
Right,
so that the area doesn't get cut off over time with the mower.
sure. I can see, 4 there.
Yeah, I think,
And again, going forward, there's a stipulation regarding no use of chemicals in that area, so just to keep that in the front of your brain, level of awareness as to what that area is.
so one other option that we have seen in coastal areas is people use a post and rail fence on the plan with conservation placards on the posts. So that is also an option here if you wanted to do a post and rail fence or a post and rope fence, if that looks better, because I do think you would need more here, given the shape of it. I mean, and where you have entranceways here, I mean, you probably want to do 2 even on there, which might look kind of silly, but you want to make sure that, the commission anyways wants to make sure that it stays the size that it's supposed to be over time. So that's another option. If that's more preferable to the applicant, they can,
Sure, we
Do
can,
that.
I'll review that with the.
and then it would just be
homeowners.
mandated on the special conditions that, the conservation placards stay in perpetuity. So,
You all set?
and yeah, you don't have to put the detail of the conservation post in the plan. I kind of bake that into the special conditions now because I started seeing that shifting on the plans with the 3 feet and 1 feet. So they're just always 2 feet in the ground, 2 feet above.
Yep, just a 4x4 PT post,
Yep.
placards.
Anything else from the commission? Anything from the public present or online? All right, do I hear a motion to continue this matter to May 28th?
I move that we continue this to, what is it,
May
28th.
28th. Do I have a second? We have a motion and a second. We can take a vote. Dot? Megan?
Aye.
Colleen's an aye. Marilyn?
Aye.
The motion passes. We'll see you on the 28th.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Going to move on to section B.
Yep.
Going to move on to section B. This is 2 Wildwood Circle. This is a notice of intent for retroactive construction of a large play structure within the buffer zone of a bordering vegetated wetland and the outer 200-foot riverfront area to a stream. The applicants requested a continuance to May 28th, 2025. Do we hear a motion to that effect?
I move we continue.
Do I have a
To-
second? May 20th? Okay, I have a motion and a second to continue the hearing to May 28th, 2025. Take a vote. Dot?
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
Colleen's an aye. Buzz? No. Marilyn?
Aye.
That motion passes. We'll take that up on May 28th. Thank you. Moving on to section C. This is 10 Adams Avenue. This is a notice of intent for the proposed construction of a garage addition to a single-family house within the buffer zone of several coastal wetland resource areas. All
Just
right.
before we have the applicant give their presentation, I did share the staff report with them, and they did come back with plan modifications late yesterday. So I just pulled that version of the plan up now, but I haven't reviewed any of the new information.
All right. Do you have anything else to say before the representative? Would you just identify yourself for the record, please?
Yep, I'm Paul Seberg from Grady Consulting, and I'm here along with the applicants. So I'm here for the notice of intent application for the proposed project located at 10 Adams Ave. The site currently consists of an existing single-family house with a crushed seashell driveway here, as well as a deck and patio in the rear of the property. The wetlands resource areas of the site consist of a salt marsh, shown here in blue. There's a coastal beach, shown in this area here, as well as a coastal bank that runs along an existing retaining wall here. There's also land subject to coastal storm flowage associated with the FEMA flood zone, elevation VE elevation 12, shown here as this dashed blue line. We are proposing a garage addition, which is shown here in this light color here. The applicants plan to retire to this property and want a garage to store their vehicles and belongings. The proposed addition is located further from the resource areas than the existing house here. Currently, the existing impervious coverage exceeds the maximum allowed of 15%. It is 25.9%. The proposed addition will increase the impervious coverage to 32.9%. We are requesting a variance for the increase in impervious coverage and are proposing stormwater infiltration system as mitigation, which is shown here in this light blue color off to the side. The proposed stormwater system is designed to retain and infiltrate runoff from the 10-year storm event or a 5-inch rainfall event for the impervious roof area greater than 15%. which would be 1,151 square feet of impervious area. We are also requesting a variance for the stormwater mitigation system to be located closer than 40 feet to the land subject to coastal storm flowage. The proposed system is located above the flood zone elevation, and there's no changes to existing topography, so there will be no adverse impacts to the resource area for the system. We are also requesting a variance for the wall-type foundation to be closer than 50 feet to the land subject to coastal storm flowage, coastal beach, and coastal bank. It is our understanding that since the 50-foot setback to land subject to coastal storm flowage covers the entire lot, this is a previously developed site. The proposed addition is further from the resource area as we can have it. And the proposed addition is further in the resource area than the existing structure is here. The 10.08BD of the KWPR would apply in this case. We are proposing an area of mitigation plantings consisting of 106 square feet, shown here in green, which provides a 2-to-1 mitigation for the area of the wall-type foundation, which is within 50 feet to the coastal beach and coastal bank. There's also an existing sewer line that runs through the proposed addition. You kind of see it runs pretty much right straight to the middle of the proposed addition. We're proposing to decommission the sewer line temporarily for construction. It would be capped to prevent any leakage. And then once the foundation is in place, we can reroute it and reconnect the service after that. And it'll all be done in accordance with the sewer department rules and regulations. In addition, we're proposing a silt sock erosion control around the perimeter of work, shown in orange. And with that said, I'd be happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Do you have any comments, Matt?
Sure. I'll run through everything I have on this and just note that some of this may have already been dealt with under the new submission, because this was based on what was submitted before.
Well, Matt, do you want me to just touch real quick about the changes, because they were very minor plan-wise?
Let me just run through this
Okay.
first, and then you can kind of give what of that was already dealt with on that. That's probably the best way to do it. So we did a site visit May 9th with the property owners, took a look at the site. Wetlands were delineated by South River Environmental on November 3rd, 2020. Wetland delineations are typically only valid for 3 years. I don't know in this case how much the commission cares about that, based on the closest resource area is the LSCSF, which is based on the FEMA flood zone elevation, this line here. Closest, it's actually, the house itself delineates a good portion of where the flood zone is, so that's not something that actually needs to be delineated. And the next two closest resource areas are delineated by the existing boulder retaining wall, which isn't likely to move. The only real resource area that can actually be field delineated is the salt marsh, which is the furthest resource area from the project. Based on aerial imagery, it does not look like it has shifted since then. It's just up to the commission, because that is a standard, but I think in these, given what I just said, it's not necessarily a standard the commission needs to hold, but that's up to you. We did receive the formal variance request for 10.05B for the impervious surface. I recommended additional variance requests, as Paul just stated. I don't necessarily agree on what he stated about KWPR 10.08B6. It provides a standard for structures not being closer to resource areas when lot constraints exist. To me, it's unclear whether that would apply in this situation, where the commission couldn't be accused of an unconstitutional taking by denying a modification to an already developed residential property. So for that reason, I believe a variance request would still be required. A variance would still have to be issued on that. Otherwise, could check with council on that. As he said, the property is already at 25.9% over the 15% limit set by KWPR, and the plan is to increase it to 32.9%. There was mitigation proposed that will infiltrate to the 10-year storm any impervious surface beyond the 15%. So I think that was how the calculations were done here, is the end result is the property is 32.9%. Anything that's over the KWPR standard of 15% is being mitigated by infiltration up to the 10-year storm, just to understand how that was done. I, after the site visit, went back and found older files from the redevelopment of the property, and they limit the lawn type. They prevent lawn encroachment within 4 feet of the top of coastal bank with native plantings within that 4-foot zone, and prohibit all fertilizers, pesticides, and herbicides. As I said, I didn't know that until leaving the site, but just from being on the site, it was clear that those conditions were not being followed. That permit was issued in 2009 to an owner-developer that then sold the property in 2011 to the current owners. I already answered that. The sewer department issued comment on the sewer line saying that, there was a significant risk of the sewer line shearing. From the site visit, Paul showed me that this plan does, or somewhere it details on it, that they will be removing that line first and plugging it to avoid that damage, and then routing around. My question on that is, I think that's not something that we typically deal with this close to the bay, but there may be something the commission may require as far as on-site materials that could mitigate any potential sewer release. If they have an accident while they're removing that line and looking to plug it or something along those lines. I don't know necessarily how to deal with that, but I think it's definitely worth talking about giving the risk to the bay if there was a release. Basically what the wastewater department said is that if there was a breach of that line, then everybody's home in the, I forget what he said, high flow line or whatever. Basically, a lot of houses would empty out from that spot right out into the bay, so that's obviously something to avoid. There's no material stockpile location proposed. I questioned whether all excavated material be placed immediately into a dump truck or a secure container. Before the site visit, I asked if there were any plans for tree removal, because that would need permitting. From the site visit, the trees are already gone. The owner said that they fell, or one of them at least fell in a storm onto the porch, and they had that cut up and removed. So I explained our admin review process for hazard tree removal and just kind of explained that regardless of the situation, we should get a call and stuff like that. Shellfish growing area, it's just landward of CCB 44, which is still closed to the public for harvest due to contamination, so every effort should be made to limit runoff in this area. Regarding the proposed mitigation area, the species are appropriate, but without conservation posts. It's just a landscape bed. I don't know if, were they shown on this now?
Yeah, they're shown right here. Landscape bed.
This is the, says the May 13th plan, but I still don't see anything on that. Do you have conservation posts on that?
Oh, I'm sorry, no, we do not have conservation
Okay.
posts on the bed, no.
All right.
I
so
wasn't
that's-
exactly sure where the commission would want them placed in this
Sure.
case.
The mitigation area appears to be in a somewhat, again, this was written before I realized the other stuff, but appears to be in a somewhat advantageous location, but plantings at the top of the coastal bank would likely have higher impact. This has the typical Rocky Nook layout of lawn right to the edge of coastal bank that's generally detrimental to Kingston Bay. As I said earlier, there should already be 4 feet of native vegetation between the lawn and top of coastal bank. That's not there. In the project narrative section detailing compliance with KWPR 8C2, the applicant states all proposed work is located outside of the no disturb zone to the coastal beach resource area. We didn't have all the relevant buffers shown in the plan, but that statement appears to be false. So when combined with the rest of the response, fails to detail compliance with that standard. So the request appears to meet the standards of WPA, but not KWPR. Specifically 8.01C2, 10.01B9, and others may apply in that section, 10.05B, 10.08B5, Variances were requested, mitigation efforts in the form of stormwater modifications and 106 square foot mitigation planting area were proposed. The Commission should determine whether the mitigation is sufficient enough to warrant approval of the project through issuance of orders of conditions. The standard should be a cumulative, positive, or neutral situation regarding detrimental effects to the relevant resource areas. Should the Commission decide to approve the project, I have a list of special conditions that would be required based on the location. And that's what I got.
Comments from the commission?
Well, given some of the points that you brought up, it seems to me perhaps you want to continue this so you can clean up some of the loose ends. And plus, we haven't seen, the thing that you submitted came in so late.
You need to
some of
make-
us- Okay.
Start over.
Backing up. Some loose ends, which makes me feel we might want to continue it so you can clean those up, plus whatever you submitted came in so late that some of us haven't had a chance to really get a good look at it. And there are some outstanding issues that really need to be taken care of, one of them being the questionable mitigation from the previous project and now with this project, posts and things like that. So I feel we might want to continue this.
So I'd like to just quickly, the revisions to the project were, plan-wise, were very minor, and I'd like to have a little bit more discussion exactly to what the commission's going to be looking for the mitigation, if that's okay. I'd just like to go through the revisions to the plan quickly. Matt had requested that we add the buffer zones to the coastal bank and coastal beach, which are shown here in this dashed line. I think they're on this plan here, which we've added. And then the only other item was that I just shifted the stormwater system a little bit closer to the street so that it would meet the setback requirements to the coastal beach and coastal bank, but we'd still need the variance request to the land subject to coastal storm flowage. So those are the only changes plan-wise. And as far as mitigation, with the 4-foot strip, just like to have a discussion with the commission as far as what they would like. That was something that the previous owner was issued. And I don't know if the current owners were really aware of that requirement in perpetuity.
The 4-foot strip would follow the property, not the owners, right?
Right.
Yeah, the conditions always.
Right.
Yes, the condition, permits and conditions always follow the owner. And, you know, when a property is sold, the owner should be giving all of the necessary information to the new owner. I'm sure that doesn't always happen. You know, and I believe that situation, it should have still been on the deed. I don't know, I don't have offhand with me when a COC was issued on that, if it was before or after they bought the property. But the conditions still apply. Right.
So I guess then the question is, would the commission want to see, is it going to require plantings along the top of coastal bank, or what exactly you want to see as far as, I forget what the wording was, Matt, do you have that off the top?
What, the exact wording of the condition?
Right.
I can look it up. If anybody else has questions or comments while I look. You want to give an announcement that Jim has entered the meeting?
Yes, Commissioner James Franklin has joined the meeting online. Thank you, Jim. Nice to hear you, see you.
Hi guys, sorry I'm late. I got West Coast projects and had a late meeting. I did have, I came in during this discussion. I have reviewed the plan. I didn't see the most recent plan, but I believe that it probably was discussed. But could you just recap for me what the dry well situations look like, because we are increasing from we're increasing, impervious surface on this, and we're in an area where there is some problems that we know about.
I can give Jim a quick
Please.
recap, and then I guess
Please,
Paul
Matt.
can touch on it if I missed anything. But property is currently at roughly 26% impervious coverage, and the proposal would increase it to roughly 33%. The dry well, or the infiltration system, proposes to infiltrate all of the impervious surface above 15%, which comes out to roughly 1,150 square feet. And to do so, it's designed to do so for the 10-year storm, which is 5 inches of rain, is that what you said?
That's correct, yep. Pretty significant rainfall of that.
I do have
We've
the,
seen that pretty significantly. To be completely clear with everybody, it is something that I know about. So, if we're talking about what improvements we would like to see, I would definitely like to see more infiltration. So if we're gonna go to a 10-year storm, I would like to see more square footage mitigated in the final plan. So.
I have the language if we're ready for that.
Yep.
So, so this is from the orders of conditions issued March 20th, 2009. Number 21, lawn area shall be minimized on this property and shall be planted with low-growing fescue, which is native to the area, which is an interesting wording, and requires minimal maintenance. This is a perpetual condition and does not expire at the end of the permit term or upon the issuance of a certificate of compliance. 22, the lawn area shall not extend to within 4 feet of the top of coastal bank. This is a perpetual condition and does not expire at the end of the permit term or upon the issuance of a certificate of compliance. Prior to seeding the lawn area shall be staked and inspected by the agent. Should stabilization be needed in the 4-foot zone from the end of the lawn to the coastal bank, plantings mentioned in condition number 20 shall be used. Plantings may be used in combination with biodegradable erosion control fabrics, such as coconut fiber or coir mesh. And number 23, fertilizers, pesticides, and herbicides are prohibited from use on the property. This is a perpetual condition, does not expire, same language as the others. Condition 20 lists suitable native and salt-tolerant plantings. It says final choice of plantings shall be approved by the commission or agent. So essentially the permit as issued, what was that, in 2009, already required the lawn be no closer than 4 feet to the top of coastal bank. I'm assuming at the time there must have been some form of stable vegetation there. It does mention Japanese knotweed. Yeah, it says suitable native and salt-tolerant plantings to replace the knotweed include. So there must have been a Japanese knotweed infestation on top of the coastal bank, but I assume there must have been some other natives mixed into that at the time this permit was issued. They didn't want the lawn encroaching, but gave a list of native plants to be used in case, there was a need for stability there. So the idea there was to have a 4-foot native plant buffer on the top of coastal bank and not have the lawn encroach onto that, and not to use any chemicals, fertilizers, anything like that on the lawn. So at this point, that's not what you have. You have, a pretty, I would say, nice green turf right up to the edge of the coastal bank. So I think, at a minimum, the commission would want to see what was supposed to be there when this was issued back in 2009, and that's before talking about any mitigation for approving any project beyond what's there right now.
Did you have something to say?
Yeah, so I guess for clarification, the commission wanted us to see, us to put a 4-foot strip of vegetation along the top of the wall, essentially, maybe like a grass type, a tall grass type vegetation.
I have a
It's
list
native.
of the suitable plantings. I mean, it's nothing different really than what we usually would approve in these kind of situations. The standard for mitigation, in my opinion, is only species that are native to southeastern Mass. And again, they're not mulch beds. The idea this isn't going to work. I have the list of appropriate plants from 2009. I said it's not much different than, what we typically approve in these situations now. The standard, that I hold to in review of these things for mitigation is that species used are going to be native to southeastern Mass, and be species type, no cultivars. And they're not intended to be mulch beds, garden beds. I mean, the intent over time is that you have dense growth that covers the entire ground, no exposed soil or anything that's going to get washed into, the bay, and they will work as a filter to stop things from getting down there, and also help to stabilize the top of coastal bank. So I can share this with you or help with that in any way.
I'll review that with the applicants.
Okay.
And then, Jim, you had mentioned that you would want to see some more of the impervious coverage mitigation and infiltrated on site. That's a 5-inch rainfall event, just for clarity. And we are infiltrating the excess of the 15%, anything over 15%, we are infiltrating on site, which is consistent with the designs that I've seen before the commission for that type of mitigation.
Yeah, as one person speaking for what I've reviewed, we push for as much as we can get here. The area that the project's being contemplated for is known to have issues with runoff into the bay. So if we're going to be seeing something, and we're going to be increasing, then we should be asking for, what we can do to improve the site be completed as part of the project. From respectfully, it's not a lot to ask, and it's not a huge cost to the applicants, and considering what we're, considering is something that, is tough to get around without variances. I think that you have to demonstrate a best effort, to make it worth, the variances that are being contemplated. So I think you got to do a little bit more.
I would echo that, just so you know.
Right, we certainly agree. I mean, from a design standpoint, the existing site's 25.9%, and we're bringing what's there currently at 25.9% down to the 15%, which is what would be allowed in accordance with the regulations. So we are making a significant effort to improve the conditions just based on the existing site alone, and then also infiltrating any of the proposed as well.
Let me just wrap up by saying this. I'm one person. I'm letting you know what I would like to see in this. Do your best to get to where it's at. I don't think the meeting is the place where we design your project. So I would just say let's respect the time of the board and everybody that has to be seen tonight, and take some of these questions offline to the agent. He knows typically what the board will accept when we get into these types of things and follow the guidance. And if it's the best faith effort, I think people judge it accordingly.
So are we talking about moving this forward? What kind of time would you need?
We could have the revisions in probably beginning of next week.
As long
I
as
don't
you
think there's really much left to address here.
As long as you could have them to me by the 21st, we'd be okay for the 28th.
Okay.
Let's do that then. Do I hear a motion?
So I'll make
Yes.
that motion to continue this to the 28th.
Do we have a second? All right, so we have a motion to continue this matter for 2 weeks to the 28th. It's been seconded, so take a vote. Dot?
Yes.
Jim?
I'll abstain until I can watch what the minutes that I missed.
Megan?
Yes.
Colleen's a yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
All right, the motion passes, and we will see you again on the 28th of May. Thank you so much for your
Thank you,
courtesy.
appreciate it.
Thanks, Paul.
And if there's anybody who hasn't signed in, there is a sign-in sheet on the chair over here by the door. Please make sure you put your name on it. All right. Are we going back to Ring Road? Okay. And this is 126, 131 to 137 Ring Road? All right, then, I'm going to now open a public meeting to discuss the request for amendment or deviation for 126 and 131 to 137 Ring Road. This was submitted by Beals and Thomas on behalf of Ring Road Solar LLC. The file number on that is SE 037-0889 and 0890. Do you have any comments from, you want to comment first, Matt?
Yeah, I don't know that we have anybody to speak to this anyways. So to remind the commission, this was a request for deviation to install, I don't know if you call it chain link fence, but similar, a security fence, wire mesh around the solar project based on the Plimpton and Kingston electrical inspector requirements. The commission members asked them to go get a second opinion from the state inspector, sort of thinking that the work may not be necessary. And due to close proximity to the wetlands, it would be beneficial to know if it was or wasn't. I haven't heard anything back on that, but I received a letter from the council representing the project April 30th. The letter was dated April 17th, claiming that the project meets agricultural exemptions because of protecting the cranberry bogs from deer. So I passed that along to our council for review from a procedural standpoint to see how we would go about this. The representative asked me a couple days ago, you know, if I received the letter, and I said yes. I passed it off to council for review and haven't had a response yet. So I would say procedurally, we're continuing this to the 28th because I have no answers back. Unfortunately, town council is in the middle of town meeting season with a bunch of other towns, and it's been difficult to get guidance on some of this stuff quickly. So here we are.
You
So,
think
yeah.
2 weeks is sufficient?
I would hope so.
Okay. It's going to be a busy meeting.
The 28th is certainly already a busy meeting. We have now 6 hearings scheduled.
Are there any other comments from the public or from anyone present on this? All right, do I have a motion to continue this?
I'll make that motion to continue to the 28th. Just if you don't hear from town council, so I think we should move it ahead.
Even for, sure.
Was there, I didn't completely follow that. Was there a question or?
No, I'll make the motion to move it to the 28th, assuming that you'll get a response from the attorney.
Right.
Should you not get a response from the attorney, I don't think we should take it up again.
Agreed. Yeah, but I will, and I have been sort of pushing council on this stuff because I don't want to let it go too far.
So I have a motion, I have a second? Second. I got a motion and a second. I'm going to take a vote. Dot?
Yeah.
Jim?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
And is a yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
We're going to continue that, hopefully to May 28th. Thank you. Are we going to Keolis?
Yeah, can we just confirm, I see Matt Donovan on there, can we just confirm that he is present and ready?
Hey, this is Matt Donovan. I am.
Awesome, yeah, we'll go with that.
All right, I'm going to open a public meeting to discuss the request for determination of applicability. We call that an RDA, submitted by Benesh on behalf of the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority, we call that MBTA, and Keolis Commuter Services LLC, for confirmation of wetland boundaries along the MBTA commuter rail right-of-way, where vegetation management plan activities would take place between 2026 and 2031. Matt, do you want to make your comments first?
I'd like a presentation.
Then why don't we ask, are there members of the representatives here? Is that
Matt
you
Donovan's
guys?
up there.
He's
Hmm?
online.
He's online.
They're online? Would you identify yourself for the record?
Yeah, this is Matt Donovan from Benesh, here to represent Keolis.
All right, thanks. Want to make your presentation?
Yeah, so this RDA is to confirm the accuracy of the maps used for vegetation management along the commuter rail right-of-way. And this RDA is submitted to your commission every 5 years, required by CMR 11. It's required to get these determinations before submitting the 5-year vegetation management plan to Mass Department of Agricultural Resources. There are regulations in place to keep the sensitive areas protected throughout the duration of this vegetation management plan. And these sensitive area restrictions are listed and described in CMR 11.04, as well as our vegetation management plan. The map we provide you with are mainly made for the chemical portion of the plan, but often dictate where mechanical methods will be used due to chemical restrictions. Each year there are 2 main chemical applications, one in the May to June timeframe, and that targets the roadbed, and one in the August-September timeframe that targets the brush in the areas adjacent to the roadbed. The sensitive areas marked with blue and yellow on the maps are restricted from the brush program and will only receive the roadbed application, which is what I'll focus on because that's the only chemical program taking place in these sensitive areas of your jurisdiction. However, if you do have questions about the brush program, I'd be happy to answer those as well. So the roadbed application is performed by a spray truck that drives directly on the track, equipped with nozzles on the back side of the truck located about 18 inches above the ground, spraying the solution directly down onto the track. It has arms with nozzles on the arms that target the shoulders of the roadbed up to 12 feet from the center of track on each side. The certified applicator is always accompanied by an environmental monitor, familiar with the site conditions and equipped with these maps, instructing the operator as necessary. The applicator has the ability to turn off all the nozzles, or in many cases, just one or both side nozzles where it's spraying the solution onto the shoulders where it may be getting close to the buffer zone of a sensitive area. The yellow zones will never receive any treatment to the shoulders. However, it may still receive treatment directly down onto the ties, and that's done at the applicator's and environmental monitor's discretion to stay within the conformance of the regulations. The blue zones typically represent being between 10 and 100 feet of sensitive areas, and these zones typically receive the full roadbed treatment. The light blue zones are only sprayed with this roadbed treatment once every year at the minimum interval in conformance with the regulations, and any dark blue zones are sprayed every 2 years, and the dark blue zones are more so DEP zones and water supply zones. The chemicals that are used each year are always going to come from the right-of-way sensitive area material list provided by Mass Department of Agricultural Resources. And we do include each year's program mixture in the yearly operational plan that we send to your commission. We are seeking a positive 2A determination to confirm the maps, as well as a negative determination for the work included in the vegetation management plan. So if anyone has any questions, I can open the floor up to the commission.
Thank you. Can we hear from you first, Matt?
Sure. Just to sort of run through a little bit of what he was talking about there. We have, and I think the commission would have seen, a series of 10 maps that was provided that shows the whole right-of-way and details the areas that he mentioned. So if you see up here, the light blue areas, and they're detailed on the bottom, that the light blue areas have the 1 year spray interval, the dark is a 2, and the yellow have no spray. So here you see a stream, likely a culvert going on. Actually, that might be the Jones right there. And you have the yellow no spray area on either side of that. Private well, you have the blue every 2 years, light blue where there's wetlands on both sides. And we did communicate a little bit about this. Matt did provide some updates up until today, actually, where some light blue area was added to the map where there were no restrictions, and there was some yellow area added as well. Here you have, I believe that's Pine Brook right there. You have the yellow no spray. Just kind of flipping through some of these. Again, I'll go through my whole report in a second. I just kind of want to give you an idea of what they're talking about here. Again, yellow right here where the Jones River crosses. And we added some pretty significant yellow and blue areas over here where you have the salt marsh associated with the Jones River, the tributary of the Jones, and then on the next page you have where Smelt Brook comes off. So as far as that goes, I'm pretty happy now with the level of protection increasing from the last plan to this one in terms of where we have known rivers and streams and salt marsh areas. It's a little bit of a tough application just in that, the requirement is that they have to get the wetlands delineated through issuance of this permit, or else the vegetation management plan is invalid. But the wetlands aren't delineated. Nobody went out and delineated wetlands. So I had kind of an issue from a procedural standpoint that if we affirm all of these wetland boundaries, that's not only relevant to this project, somebody could then go forward assuming that those are valid. So I talked with Matt about that, and he did say that other towns have included language like that, we would be able to issue a 2A, but specify that the 2A is only valid for the purposes of affirming boundaries on this vegetation management plan, and any other activities would require wetland delineation. From a negative, they requested a -5, and I have no issue with that. I've reviewed all of the state. Just to back up even more, MBTA is exempt from local bylaws, similar to DOT. So this is only being reviewed under the Wetlands Protection Act. So I've reviewed all of the exemptions that they're claiming, and I believe they're all valid. And I have reviewed the Right-of-Way Management Act sections that are relevant to this as well. So let me just flip through this for 1 second. A DOA was issued in 2020, and strangely, it looks like it was issued under both WPA and KWPR, which I don't see any real benefit in issuing anything under KWPR, because it's not, there's no standing there. But it was approved through a -2 determination, which states that the work is in a jurisdictional area but won't remove, fill, dredge, or alter. Really, in this situation, I don't see much difference between the two. I think that claiming that it meets the exemptions is equally fine from the commission's standpoint on something like this. I think the reason why they may have done that is that the Right-of-Way Management Act states that if a vegetation management plan is being followed, the work will not alter the wetland resource area. Anything else?
And wasn't there language, as you were pointing out, regarding the disclaimer of the delineation?
In 2020?
No. Whatever he provided you with this last minute.
Yeah, I do have that, that language as well. I don't have it printed, but I can pull that specific language up if you want to spell it out for the record. I just want to make sure there was nothing else on my report that I wanted to go through here. My only other question was about actually confirming wetlands in the field. There was a note from Mary Guiney in 2020 saying that she didn't feel she could go out and review anything because of social distancing requirements of COVID. Matt did say, and I didn't have it accessible in my records, that in 2016, the commission did actually go review wetlands in the field. So I don't know. I don't know that that's necessary if it was done in 2016. I don't think that there's anything that would be markedly different since then. I was more concerned with getting restrictions on what appeared to be major streams that crossed underneath there, and I think we have enough protection here that I don't have any issue issuing a 2A with that special language and a -5. But if the commission has any questions about any of that, we can certainly, if the commission had any questions about particular areas even, we can go confirm those. So that's what I got. I'll pull that language up now too. So Matt said several towns have had the same concern and have settled on adding narrative to the positive 2A, such as this determination is only valid for the purpose of vegetation management activities in conformance with the MDAR-approved vegetation management plan, or this determination of accuracy of jurisdictional area boundaries is binding for the sole purpose of establishing jurisdictional areas for the applicant's vegetation management plan under 333 CMR 11 only. Any future construction or project activities that may be proposed by the applicant or another party during the validity of the determination shall require the submittal of new field delineation boundaries and/or the submittal of a separate wetland permit filing for the review and approval of the Conservation Commission. Personally, I like that second one. I think that covers any of my concerns.
Second.
Do we have a motion?
Is that done?
Me? Yes. Unless you have questions, I'm done.
No, as I said, I appreciate your pulling that language up and reading it, and I think we definitely should incorporate it.
Any other comments from the commission? Any comments from members of the public who may be present online?
Don't see anything.
All right, then. Do I have a motion? I know.
It appears we could issue a negative determination too, with the language.
Positive 2A with the language which confirms the wetland resource boundaries, and then a -5 citing exemptions under the WPA.
Right. And do we have a second?
So it's been said.
It would be to approve the request, issuing a positive 2A and -5 determinations. Second on
I'll
that?
second it.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. I'm going to take a vote on that. Dot?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Colleen is a yes, and Marilyn?
Yeah.
All right, that
Yes.
motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
You bet. So what are we going back to now?
10 Baker.
10 Baker.
Good old 10 Baker. I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be right back.
Just keep going.
Oh, here we are. Do you know Old Joe Mahoney? I have a note that this is the old Joe Mahoney off Baker Ave, NOI. I know, we should start singing it.
Yeah, I go all the way up to
So you knew old Joe? If we're ready, I'm going to open a public meeting to discuss the request for amendment or deviation for 10 Baker Avenue. Do you want to comment first, Matt?
Just the 40,000-foot view, this was a project that was permitted. All right, I'm leaving my microphone on from now on.
Yeah.
This was a project that was permitted a couple of years ago under an NOI KWPR only for being in the outer reaches of the 200-foot riverfront area to an intermittent stream.
Mhm.
When the commission did a site visit, they felt that the house was being built too close to a slope and there would be some stabilization needed or there'd be issues down the road. So the applicant proposed a tiered retaining wall system with mitigation plantings, but that brought the project within state jurisdiction, so they did that through an RDA filing rather than refile the whole NOI. Then, once the permits were issued, apparently a lot of that was scrapped and they just built it based on one plan, not the other. And then the property was sold to Jeff, and here we are now, years later. And he would like to wrap everything up and do whatever he needs to do to be able to move on from this and enjoy his life.
Let us know. Sorry. The microphone is yours, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jeff Katzenstein. My wife, Carissa, and I own the subject property. Garrett.
Good evening, I'm Garrett Tunison from Tunison Environmental Consultants. I actually did the original plan, but then, and the notice of intent, but then I was not apparently involved with anything until everything was completed. And the initial applicant wanted to go for, a request for certificate of compliance. So that's when I got re-involved.
Okay. Thank you.
So from my perspective, as addressed in my cover letter with my application, we were shown the buffer zone planting plan before we purchased the property, and that was largely complied with. There were just a couple of missing plantings from that. So there are restoration plantings on that tiered retaining wall as well as at the top of that slope. What we did not know until the last minute before closing was that there was the riverfront area planting plan, which would fill our front, most or all of our front yard on both sides of the driveway with restoration plantings. And so rather than get into a conflict with the developer, we worked with Garrett to devise and prepare the planting plan, the revised planting plan that we proposed. That's attached as Exhibit C. And I'll let Garrett explain more about that, but what I'd like to emphasize is there's no change in the volume of the restoration plantings. We've simply moved them from taking up that entire front yard area to some of them being in a grassy area at the bottom of that tiered retaining wall, which is an area we don't use as much and which is actually close to a potential vernal pool that's across the driveway, as well as some that's in a forested area. So I actually think that this may do more for wetland resource areas than the original plan might have, but Garrett can speak to that a little
All
more.
right, thank you.
So the plantings, I have a
Sorry,
laser pointer.
sorry, Garrett,
Sorry, go ahead.
and I can get rid of this,
Oh,
but just
okay.
really quickly, and this is not the most recent concept plan, but this is something that I had on file, I believe, for maybe a year ago when we had first started talking about this, just for the commission's quick review. The black hashed line is the divider between the RDA filing and the NOI filing, and that's, I guess, important from the standpoint of everything to, let's say, the east of that line is something that would require an amendment to orders of conditions. Everything on the other side of that does not. I can now get rid of this and pull up the regular plan. Just the pink shaded areas are the areas of missing mitigation plantings. And again, the green dotted areas are the areas that I think were being proposed maybe about a year ago. So I'll now pull up what the actual proposal is, but this is just a quick view of
And
sort
this-
of, that's
and
what
this-
it was supposed to look like from when the permitting was done. That didn't happen, but now I can pull up.
But before you flip that off, the CR, I didn't hear you.
Yeah, we'll talk about that too.
Okay.
That was something as well. And
The other thing, Matt, there were, as you can see in the red here, there were 3 plants that weren't included, so we made sure that those that were missed in that mitigation area were then carried over to what we're currently saying we're going to do.
yeah, essentially the quick hit points to it are the main differences anyways are plantings are not, the plantings weren't done, plantings are now proposed to be in a different location. The conservation restriction was never put in place. The fence is in a different location than was approved, and invasive plant management was not completed. I can get rid of this. That's not it. Which exhibit were you looking at? C is what you wanted?
Yeah, I think that's, C is the revised plan.
All right.
So this is, yeah, that, Exhibit A was the buffer zone planning plan that we had been shown that was largely complied with. This is the revised plan.
So the ones that were installed are the areas here with the yellow. So those are the plants that were installed. The green area over here, that's the area of the original proposal, the plants that were not planted or installed. So they were over in this area, and of course, this would pretty much eliminate their lawn. So they bought their house, they would like to keep their lawn, and I don't see an issue with that because we've actually moved the plantings. We looked there, it is lacking in that area. That's where we relocated the plants, and they're a lot closer. This wetland delineation boundary here is for the ephemeral ponding area or the potential vernal pool. So increasing and doing the restoration over here or enhancement, I think is actually a pretty good idea because if there are vernal pool species in here in the ephemeral ponding area, and we know that there are peepers there, so there could be wood frogs and spotted salamanders in that type of habitat and several others, they may utilize the areas up in here. So it's pretty close to where the ephemeral ponding area is. So I don't think it's a bad place. I think it's a really good place to locate the plantings. And as you can see, I actually misspoke because there's 2 others, so there's a total of 5 plants that were missed from the original. So those are the additional plants that we have for the ones that weren't put in the tiered interlocking concrete block wall. So then we added, we looked if we could put a few more, we added a few more plants over here, proposed that would increase the numbers a little bit more because we didn't put them in the place, we didn't put them over here initially. So we can fit some along the edge, it seemed to make sense. So that's how we upgraded it and basically relocated it to conform with the original intent.
So, if I understand you, the original was, like, is that gray thing a driveway?
Yes, so that's the driveway.
Sorry, you gotta be at the microphone.
I'm sorry. So yes, this is the driveway, and then this area over here is where we had the plantings. It was down
Okay.
over in this area, and then it was
Alright.
also over in here.
And where exactly is the vernal pool?
The potential vernal pool or ephemeral ponding area is inside this wetland boundary, so it's over in this area, right
Okay.
here. So you can see it's pretty close.
Does it bring it into the no-touch zone?
It's on the, it's just the plantings in there. I don't recall if it's in the no-touch zone. What is the buffer on that? It's cut off.
It would probably be in the it will be in the no-touch zone. It's currently lawn.
Is it allowed?
So,
It's not, I don't believe, lawn that was permitted.
So
You know, like I said,
It's
this,
better than what's there now?
what was there before it was lawn was
Right.
already disturbed.
And-
To
and,
my recollection, there was not any intact habitat disturbed by what was done there as part of the RDA portion of this with the
Would the
retaining
plants
wall.
proposed be habitat?
Yes, this would
more
be
so
a
than lawn.
restoration area.
They all, if you look at, what's his name? DeGraff. He's the author for wildlife, leading expert in New England.
Okay.
DeGraff, if you look at, he has a guide on plants as well. It's an older document, but it's also Dr. Reddington from Springfield College, and he is he has a whole, if you may actually have the guide, a lot of wetland scientists and MACC members have his wetland plant guide. And
Okay.
when you open it up, you'll see all the interactions with different organisms with each plant.
Okay.
So both of those authors recommend everything that's on here, and all the plants are native to the actual site. So we're just adding more of what is there,
Yeah.
and that area is pretty void of native shrubs. So we're now putting a shrub layer in, and it's closer to the pond, which is ponding area, which is what you would expect to see as you come down the hill and you get close to the water. You expect to see a pretty dense shrub layer.
Okay.
So it doesn't really have that.
Lena, may
Yes, please, Jim.
I? All right, I remember this one, right? You know, I remember going on the sites, I remember the discussions, I remember what we were concerned with, while we were having the discussion. My recollection of this is that this is a pretty aggressive slope and that we were concerned because of the intermittent stream on the grass side of where the plantings were emitted. We were worried about if the grass goes in there, then, whatever you put in your grass ends up flowing down into that intermittent stream. So I think we wanted to see and the,
Sorry, Jim, not the stream, the vernal pool, potential vernal pool.
No, I'm not talking about the same area. I'm talking about the grass, right? Where the plantings were emitted, right? So on the north side of the driveway, right? There's an intermittent stream over there. Call it an old bog or whatever, but technically it's an intermittent stream. It's called as such on the plan. So whatever with the slope of the land in the driveway, there's going to be a slope, and anything that goes into that lawn, it could get washed down into that stream, which is why we wanted to see the plantings there. Now, That's, what I was expecting to see. I don't hear anything saying that there's any kind of swales, that you're gonna be able to direct that water into, the driveway drain or whatever, or where it goes from there, but, I'd like to hear, I'm completely fine if it makes sense that you can block runoff, from getting over in that general direction. I'm open to any solution that you guys can put forward, and it looks like you got some additional plantings. Are you planning any swales or anything? Is there anything that you can do to, block the potential water flow down that gradient into the area of that, protected resource?
Jim, can I jump in and answer some of that for you before we go forward with that?
If it's been answered, yeah.
Just for clarification, you're 100% on in terms of what the commission's concerns were back then, but it was for the vernal pool. So the intermittent stream is off.
That is in the back of the property.
Oh, he's right.
The intermittent stream was off to the east. So
So if you're looking at the map right there, you can see the intermittent stream. The vernal pool is on the left side of the drawing, up above where it goes.
correct, and the driveway slopes down to Baker Ave, and Baker Ave slopes down towards the vernal pool. The stream, if you're standing in the driveway, you see that you actually have to go up and over a little bit of a I don't want to call it a berm, because the landform actually goes up before it goes down towards the intermittent stream. So,
Okay, so you're saying there's natural gradient that would prevent anything from washing down from the driveway, oils, whatever, fertilizers, whatever phosphates they might put on the lawns. You're saying that there's already a natural blockage to that concern there.
for the stream, yes. For the vernal pool, no. And that's why I was going to bring this up, but the commission wanted, and I believe specifically you back then, wanted to see some robust driveway stormwater infiltration.
Right, yeah.
And that was another tricky thing about this filing, was that ultimately what was approved under the NOI plan, I believe, showed more robust mitigation than ended up being built because of the difference between the two plans. So now what exists is a trench drain across the driveway, but not any of the linear features that, and I believe I could probably pull that up with what the other plan was. But the idea was to try to keep as much water from getting to Baker Ave as possible because of the potential for that stuff running down into that vernal pool.
And that jogged my memory that, yeah, you're right. I knew that there was a drainage component to it. It wasn't fresh in my head, and I couldn't put my finger on it. But it makes sense what you're saying. If we're worried about the flow, we want to stop before it hits the bottom of the hill and runs past where it's going to be. So, all right, I stand corrected to that point.
Still, definitely valid for the purposes of that vernal pool. So this now on the screen is the riverfront area planting plan, and it does show the driveway BMP that is detailed, and it was all down the whole run of the driveway. It was the RDA plan that added the trench across, but of course the RDA plan did not show what was already on the NOI plan, so, yeah.
So, Matt, based on what you've seen, if understanding what our frame of mind was when we actually approved this the first time, would you say that the trench driveway drain at the bottom as it exists today is sufficient to meet what we saw in the approved layout, and that was part of the consideration for our approval in the first place, or would you say that it does not meet that?
Without being an engineer or really doing any real assessment of it, gut from just looking at the site and that, I would say probably not.
That's all I need to know, thank you.
Okay.
So my original comments stand, except, I'm going to modify them to reflect, the concern not being the intimate stream, but the vernal pool, as it was pointed out, is downgraded. So, putting, if you all recall, there was an area before we walked up the aggressive slope that looked like somebody might have used for parking way back in the day. Wasn't paved, but it was just, flat space where it was kind of off of Baker Ave. It looks to me like that's probably the area where, they're contemplating adding these extra plants, and I'm all for extra plants, and if it was only the planting thing, and it was an equal trade-off, and there was no detriment to, relocating it, that would be one thing. But if we missed out stormwater management, that was, something that was required of the project, then, I'm all for holding, the project to the letter of that requirement, which means, you gotta meet the intent, and if there's another way, I certainly would be open to it, but we need to document that there was, not a reduction in what we required after the fact, right? That's my one person's opinion.
I would say that I think Jim is spot on as far as the area and description. That was an area that was being used by area residents. I think people in the neighborhood had a basketball hoop up over there, and people used to park vehicles over there. It was a pretty disturbed site at the time. And I think he's spot on about the drainage portion of it. I will say from the vegetation portion of it, here you see the lawn strip here to the east of the driveway. That's currently lawn. As I said before, if you look right at the edge of it, right about here, and I can pull up pictures and show you from the site visit some of the site, but this area here is higher than the lawn. So the chances of anything running off this way towards the intermittent stream that's out there are very slim. So I think what this was Garrett, and rightfully so, and I loved it at the time, came forward with the best possible mitigation package to get the project through as quickly as possible without having to go back and forth with the commission. And that's what the project was permitted under, so that's what on paper has to happen to get a COC. But when the commission's trying to determine whether they want to hear something as an amendment, or if you are in an amendment hearing, the standard of an amendment needing to be less detrimental or no more detrimental to the resource areas, I think in this case, moving those plantings to the area downslope of the house and driveway, the house and lawn driveway, in between that and the vernal pool, I think is certainly a benefit. So there's a lot of other stuff, to this between the conservation restriction and the drainage and stuff like that, but strictly from the vegetation standpoint alone, I have no issue with that. I think that was actually a suggestion that I might have made a year ago or something, like, well, what about that area? Like, if you can get everything over there, that could be considered beneficial, protect the vernal pool more.
But Matt, just, going back, I can see that as a fair trade-off. I just can't see the omission of a drain water plan or strategy that meets the original intent as being something that's not a detriment, because the more water we don't get into that design, the more likely of anything making its way further. So I'm open, but I can't just say that changing it just makes it so. I think we owe it a level of diligence in this to make sure an excellent judgment.
No, I would agree with you on that. I was strictly speaking vegetation alone. So, if it helps to kind of move everybody along, applicant and commission, personally, I think that there's benefit in swapping the plantings down there. So if you're looking at doing the drainage so that the drainage meets the plan and the orders of conditions, and dealing with any of the other stuff that was supposed to be done, like invasive plant management, CR, and all you're talking about is shifting the vegetation, then I think that could certainly, meet the standards for an amendment. And again, and I don't know that we would ever allow something like this to go through in this fashion again because of what we're learning from this, but I think the procedure for that would be, you would be amending the KWPR orders of conditions, but you would, I believe, also have to file an RDA under the WPA, because that's within the area that was only filed as an RDA specifically to get the tiered plantings and the retaining wall permitted from what, that was the only part that fell into state jurisdiction. So, not the cleanest way, but also not impossible. It's easy enough to file an RDA and, for that portion of it, but still messy. Is there anything else the commission wants to see? Do you want me to go through site visit photos? Has everybody already reviewed them? You want me to kind of walk through and tell you what the areas were there?
Is that a certified vernal pool yet?
No, and I don't know that it would meet the standards. It might be a pond. I don't know. I know nothing about it.
You're nodding.
I'm not a wetland scientist, but I consider it a pond. I have never seen it. We've lived there for almost 2 years now. I've never seen it dried up completely. It has, water in it all year round.
That's because it gets all of his driveway runoff now.
No, my vernal pool has water.
My drain does a very good job.
Right, so that doesn't really classify it or not classify it as a vernal pool with standing water, does it not? Because mine holds water.
Vernal pools should
Right.
dry out periodically, but that's not always the case. I mean, I don't think that's
But
not
that
a
would
requirement.
disallow it still being a vernal.
Correct.
Right.
They don't have to dry out completely.
Right.
They have to be void of fish, and they have to
No inlet,
contain
no
marine
outlet.
biology.
Predatory fish.
And yes.
Right, predatory.
Yeah, we have the drill down.
I don't recall what there was for monitoring post-planting.
I was thinking about that, and I can't.
I'd have to look back at what that was. But so this, what you're looking at now is that you're looking from the top of the fence down that tiered retaining wall and conservation plantings. Some of the stuff looks great, some of it didn't, but it was still early. Some of the stuff may not have leafed out yet. So one of the considerations will be, I don't know what the requirements were for post-completion monitoring, but I will be looking into that because some of that might need a little bit of help. As Garrett said, some of those plantings need to be replaced. This is an area, I believe, where you have conservation plantings on the inside of the fence, is that correct?
I believe so.
Yeah.
That's right. We had that fencing installed after we purchased the house. And I understand that's not ideal, but these 2 rows of plantings, I mean, they are healthy. We don't disturb that area.
But the fence is not in the place where it was supposed to be, is that correct?
That is correct. If you looked at the NOI plan, the NOI plan showed conservation restriction fencing at the edge of that 100-foot area. But obviously that plan wasn't followed. I don't recall, I'd have to look back at the plan to see if there was anything at that point at the top of because the plantings were on the tiered retaining wall system, so I don't know that there was a requirement for conservation posts at the top of that. I don't recall if the fence was on that portion of it or not. So we'd have to look back at that.
So aside from the plantings, which seem to be fairly clearly fixed, we're still looking at a fence that's not in the right place. We're looking at a conservation restriction that doesn't exist. What else?
Invasive plant management.
Invasive planting, the eradication plan?
And the
Eradication plan?
stormwater.
Yeah, I don't think that was
That-
followed.
Didn't happen.
No.
Anything else?
Just the stormwater thing that was
Yeah.
already gone through. This is really slow.
Can I ask for another clarification, please?
Yes, Jim?
All right, so just on one of the plans that I'm looking at, it identifies a driveway that's under construction. Is that a old plan that's just been repurposed, or is it, is the driveway still to be completed?
Driveway's installed.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just a repurposed plan. Here's a different view looking towards the driveway. So you have the house on the right, fence on the left, and that's that small area of the mitigation plantings from a different angle.
And so, from my perspective, I understand that the existing fence is not in the right place, but it would present a real an access problem for us because of the location of that kind of side porch, if that fence had to be moved to the other side of the restoration plantings there. So I hope we can find a way to keep that fence where it is. If we have to place additional conservation plantings elsewhere.
call.
I'm sorry?
A makeup call?
Yes.
Do you have small? do you-
Run
do you-
through, can I run through the rest of the photos? I'll give you the quick description, and then we
Yeah,
can have
please
some
do.
discussion. All right, so this is standing near the top of the driveway. This is that strip of grass to the east of the driveway that slopes down. So you see the car down there on Baker Ave, and off to the right is the area that goes off towards the intermittent stream. And you can see there's this kind of like dirt and wood chip kind of berm there. That there's definitely nothing running from here off that way. So that's kind of a good view of what we're saying in terms of the difference between having plantings here and having plantings downslope. This is standing down at the street, looking over at the mitigation, the tiered retaining wall and mitigation area. The area of the proposed plantings would start at the bottom of that to the right of the photo. This is the area in question. So this is the area that Jim was saying where people used to kind of pull off the side of the road here. You still have the hoop there. This now is an area of lawn, just because after being disturbed, part of it was already disturbed, the rest of it being disturbed from the installation of the retaining wall. It was just seeded with, a turf mix when it was done. So it is stable, but this is the area where the plantings are proposed. Another look at it from halfway up the driveway. So you would be talking about, I think, an area around the mailbox and over. And this, as you can see, a little bit of the trench drain there. And that might be it.
And do we know where the drain trench goes to? Trench drain goes to, sorry.
It was supposed to have let's see if this shows it.
I thought there was supposed to be a retaining swale or something to the right there, right?
Yeah, this is the worst plan to show this on, but it was supposed to be this BMP right here that drain goes to. I don't.
Yes, my understanding is that there is that, where there was a car parked in one of the photos, there's a crushed stone, just kind of parking area to the right of the driveway, and I believe there's a dry well underneath that area.
Matt, do we have a picture of that?
Don't have a picture of that. And I'd have to look back at the original COC plan that we received, but I'm not sure if we have confirmation of that. But I will look into it.
I was going to ask, do you have small children?
I do, yeah. We
I
have
was
three.
assuming the fence was to keep them from falling over the edge.
Yes, we have a dog and 3 small children.
Yeah.
So the fencing is definitely important to keep them safe and
Right.
keep wildlife out. Not all wildlife, but.
Does the commission feel, what does the commission need for information in order to make a determination on whether they'd be willing to hear this as an amendment request?
I think the plantings are fine, but I'm interested in water retention along the driveway, what is and what isn't done. That's You haven't asked for that.
I understand that the original plan had crushed stone on either side of the driveway for water flow or drainage issues. Sorry, word escaped me there, for drainage issues. I have no issue with that. I think that would actually be a nice feature, so for that to be included on the plan. That was not intentionally omitted. I'm happy for that to be included.
All right, so I think I don't want to miscommunicate. I don't believe that the intent of the stone to the right side of the east side of the driveway was for cosmetics. It looks nice too, but likely it had some kind of drainage or storage capacity on what was expected to flow there. Now, I don't know the specifics. I don't know if the driveway was supposed to be sloped and pitched to that, drainage component, and if the bottom was supposed to hold there, or what. But what I would like to see is I would like to see the designer evaluate versus what was originally submitted and give us the professional opinion of what the capacity is. And if there's a statement that, the existing matches the, it might not look the same, but it holds the same and it's, designed to, in the same way and it achieves the same intent, then I'm open to that conversation. But I'm not expecting that statement, and I would like to know the difference so that we can discuss it and adjudicate upon it. And if it is something that we can't accept through this path, then obviously we're going to have that conversation. And I suspect that they would file, file that as a separate, NOI in this case. So really, do I care where the plants are? Only to the, only to the level that they achieve what they were originally meant to. And if swapping an area for another area, I'm open to that if it meets the intent. The location of the fencing, that's the least of my concerns. It's let's make sure that we check off the big things, and if that's the one that we can't get to, meet the intent of what we originally accepted, I'm okay with that. That's my opinion. Everybody else can speak for themselves, but I would like a definitive answer on what the drainage is on the originally permitted versus the existing condition.
Jim, I'm looking at the plan now, trying to find the detail on that. I know the RDA plan, so the stormwater feature that appears to have been installed was designed for the 50-year storm. What I don't know is whether that covered every relevant portion of the property. But I'm trying to come up now with the plan detail for the stormwater feature that was linear along the driveway. Okay.
Well, Matt, this was more geared towards, what information do we want to see.
Right, yeah, I'm just trying to see if
I
we
don't want
have
to assume
some of that
anything. I don't
here.
want to interpret anything. I want the designer, who designed this and who's, design we bought into. If the calculations work the same way, then tell me they do, and if they don't, then, come up with a plan to get them to work the way that it was originally laid out, and then at that point, I think we check off, that box, and we don't have to talk about it one way or another, okay?
Right,
So
that is a good
not
point. I have the detail on the linear feature that was not installed, and it's a 2-foot wide by 2-foot deep crushed gravel infiltration channel. And my assumption is, that would have had to tie into something. You wouldn't just have that running down the whole driveway and then dumping out into the street. But that is a good point. If you can confirm that what is currently installed there right now, confirm that, again, I don't have in front of me whether that was assessed as part of the COC, because when I went to review the COC, it was so obviously not close that I didn't complete a review on it. But if there is no COC on what was installed there, we're going to have to know what was installed and know that it was actually installed to the 50-year spec. And if you can confirm that it would be unnecessary to add the 2 foot by 2 foot all the way down the driveway to feed into that, then, you know, I suppose you can make the case to the commission that what was installed was, you know, equivalent or better than what was proposed under the NOI plan. And that may or may not be the case, but that's, I suppose the right way to handle this is really, I think, want a full proposal of, here's all the things that we're gonna do as, you know, the plan calls for, and here's what we're asking for an amendment. I think most of the commission would agree that the swapping of the vegetation to a downslope area is more advantageous. It's just, it's messy with everything. And what, from my standpoint and from the commission's standpoint, don't want to miss anything, because that does sometimes happen where the ask is, well, can I take this and put it there? And there's a more glaring issue that doesn't get reviewed and kind of sneaks through that ends up detrimentally affecting wetlands. So, what else does the commission need?
I'd like to know what Jenna Carroll has to say. Is that
That's not her hand raised, that's the mouse.
There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you. Never mind.
We haven't discussed the CR that was required. Does anybody want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, and again, that was something that was offered up during the NOI as a way to, you know, really shore up protection for the vernal pool by doing invasive plant management in there so that you could get, you know, better, denser, you know, native plant thicket there and protect it in perpetuity so that there could be no encroachment out there than when somebody decided that they wanted to build a swing set or a whatever, you know, any more lawn or whatever. So is it, I don't know, is it ultimately, just kind of speaking out loud, is it ultimately necessary for that?
It was submitted and we adjudicated a line.
No, I understand. I'm only saying, that's why I said just speaking out loud. I'm not saying it wasn't, it was permitted requiring all of these things, and we just talked about that. From an actual wetlands protection standpoint, is it 100% necessary to protect that versus conservation posts? I don't know. But the commission's well within their right to say, we want everything else to be the way it's supposed to be. We want the conservation restriction, we want the invasive plant management, we want all of those things.
A CR would go along with the deed of the property, whereas conservation posts get mowed under every day.
What we have right now is a non-complying and a non-conforming project that needs a COC. We don't have to give them a COC. We can do this through the enforcement path and require them when their time expires to come into compliance, or, you know, we go the enforcement route and we have a very definitive piece there. What we should not be entertaining is to come for somebody, and this isn't a slam on anybody who owns property now, this is more on the builder not doing what's done. We're very clear in any situation in the town that it doesn't matter who the owner is, the requirement passes with the property, and it's something that just needs to be come into compliance. Caveat emptor, right? Buyer beware. These are the things that are supposed to be found out, you know, during that period when somebody's buying a house. It's unfortunate that it was missed. It's unfortunate that any of this is going to land on the buyer. I hate that that's the case, but it doesn't change the fact that the town bylaw is what the town bylaw is. And from that perspective, I think it's clear we're not rehashing or reevaluating a project that's not in compliance and seeing if we can slide it in because we're good people. There's the intent here. If you can demonstrate to me the intent that we checked off everything, even if there was some minor modifications, then amendment might be in order. If it's not, you can come back for an NOI. If the NOI doesn't meet what we were looking for in the first place, we have every right to deny it. And we can go the enforcement path to compel the project to come into compliance with what's there. So, you know, it's ugly when a builder offs his responsibilities and leaves somebody else holding the bag. We didn't do that, but we do have the requirement to perform in good faith the duties that we took the oath to uphold. So that's the tough part of what we do. It gives me no satisfaction to be the guy who needs to make sure that we don't stop talking about things that we shouldn't be talking about. If a CR was part of that offering, we didn't compel it, we didn't request it. It was something that, you know, the owner of the parcel gave in consideration for us permitting a very tough parcel to develop. So this doesn't get done without, you know, some certain conditions that were put into place. So it's certainly not open for amendment. I can't see anything like that, talking about not accepting a CR at some point. If it was there for a reason. We got to judge it accordingly.
Yes, and thank you. Just to be clear, if we're talking about a conservation restriction in the forested area outside where, you know, our fencing is, we have no issue with such a restriction. We have no intent to alter that area. You know, we like having the forest there. I know that there had been proposals to construct an entire subdivision in that area. We prefer that not be done. So we have no issue with placing a conservation restriction on that portion of the property that's not improved.
Thank you.
Sort of adding on to that, though, I don't think the commission necessarily has an idea of where that is, because we don't have the location of the current fence on there. So I think what that discussion was sort of the hope that it was the area outside of where the existing fence is, and I don't know where that is based on where the conservation restriction fencing initially was supposed to go. So those may be very different things. But other than that, Jim's 100% right on the buyer beware thing. And as far as commission review, I mean, it doesn't matter whether the commission required something or whether something was offered up. If that commission reviewed that and understood that to be a protective measure when they were assessing the building of the project, they certainly, you know, have every right to still uphold that.
The one thing that I think that I'm not 100% sure in that is that if we compel somebody to put in a CR, I don't know that that's legally binding, because I've read something to that effect in something that I've been doing. So I think that, you know, it's important to acknowledge that this was something that was presented by the original applicant. It was part of the adjudication process. We debated, we came up with a path that they could move forward with this project. They did so. They own the responsibility of satisfying the requirements that they put in place themselves. So it's a moot point. The owner, he's not arguing it. I'm not arguing it. I'm just saying I don't think we should be arguing it from any perspective if it's actually something being requested, and it doesn't appear that it is. So I think we're having a paper conversation that we don't otherwise need to, right? So I just wanted to make that point just for clarity.
What? So we need to redo the plan, we need to put all of this on there. Is there any part of this you don't get? I think you're right on board, exactly. I think you're on it. Let's just get it done, and then we'll continue to hash.
Sounds good.
Time frame?
How much do you need?
It would, I'm all set, but it would be the engineer, because in the surveyor, it needs to be as-built, and then the stormwater design needs to be verified. So make sure that that drywall holds a 50 years.
I would also say the as-built should do something similar to what I did very crudely in pink marker.
Yeah, it did.
You want the as-built to show what was not done correctly.
So like
And-
the polygon showing that this is where the stop was supposed to be.
Yeah, and if that has to be hashed out in 2 separate sections or something, if it gets too messy, that's
But another
fine
layer, just so
too,
it
but.
can be really looked at clearly.
Yes.
Not a bunch of lines with colors and.
That makes sense.
So you may want one just as-built plan and the other one that also overlays what was supposed to be there, so you can see the differences in the
Right.
fencing, you can see the differences in the plantings, the stormwater. That way the commission gets to see everything all at once. I think, again, if you're making an ask of the commission, which is a request for deviation, then I would expect that should also be accompanied by a narrative explaining all of these things are going to be complied with, and here's what we're doing with that, so that the commission understands what the ask is, if it's just the vegetation, or if there's a shifting in the conservation restriction layout because of the way the fence was installed, then you're asking for the fence, to be amended, that sort of stuff.
And just, I mean, there's lots of stuff being discussed here. Make a good faith effort, do your best. I'll judge it on its own merits, if you can check off all the important things in my mind, I'm completely open to, finding a better path if there is one to closing this out. So don't think that I'm a stickler who's just going to say, no, it was drawn here, do that there. But let's get me to that point so that I can say, I absolutely agree that this is a minimal change and we can dismiss it. So that's the lay of the land for how you get me to be your advocate for moving it through the path that you're asking for.
Understood, thank you.
Okay, enough motion to continue? Yes?
Yeah, we can, what kind of time are you thinking you need?
I'd like to get it done as quickly as possible, but not having spoken with the engineer who would need to prepare the plan, I don't know how much time he would need to prepare the plan you're requesting. I suppose we could put it on temporarily for a new date, and I could let Matt know once I speak with the engineer as to what his timetable might be.
With the
Two
28th is so
Two
crowded.
options.
28th
Right.
is getting busy.
28th is way too soon.
Right.
It's going to take them a long time to get that plan together. More than likely, you have 2 options, in my opinion. One would be you kick it out, I would say 2 months, and hopefully that's enough time for them to get everything together. Second option is deny it, and he refiles. It's a request for amendment. It was not a burdensome application or fee. That way, whenever they're ready, apply again, and you have the 3-week timeline. Actually, yeah, 3-week information receipt policy, but you still don't need any notification, any abutters or public hearing or meeting or anything. It's just coming to discuss with the commission, so.
That gives you some leeway.
That, if you think you can get it done quicker, that might be your best bet, is just to ask the commission or just withdraw it
Yes.
without even them needing to deny it, and come back when you're ready. Otherwise, we would probably, I would say, continue it to like first meeting in August or last meeting in July, one or the other.
I think it makes sense to withdraw it.
Yeah.
I think it makes
Yeah.
sense. I'd rather have a withdrawal than a denial, just emotionally, it feels
Nobody
to
likes
me better.
denials.
Okay.
All right, so you officially withdraw?
We officially withdraw.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good, then we'll hear from you when we hear from you.
Sounds good. Thank you for your time and consideration.
You bet,
Yes, sir.
take care.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
You too.
Are you down to enforcement?
Yes.
Okay, we're down to enforcement. All right. Let me just get there.
You get Red Road?
Yeah, Raboth Road. All right. We're going to discuss enforcement on 44 Raboth Road. Matt?
Yep. We've had this one kicking around for a while. We do have Jenna Carroll here tonight to speak to this. As a reminder for the commission, there were various issues on the property. You know, there were dock issues and sort of lots of random issues, but the biggest issue was the construction of a retaining wall. I think it was within about 30 feet of the pond and a large kind of concrete parking area at the top of the retaining wall. And the way the commission chose to handle that portion of it was to say, while it does not meet the standards, clearly doesn't meet the standards of KWPR, they should see if they could get a building permit on it first. And if they were able to get a building permit on it, then they could file with the commission to see if they could get it permitted. And if not, they would need to either remove it or modify it or something along those lines. So this all started when Jason Silva was still here. Now we have the new building commissioner, and they've sort of been working back and forth trying to figure out what they need to provide to the building department in order to get a permit. So Jenna's here tonight. She can give you an update on how that's going. And then there was also something with, I think there was a dock that was going to be removed.
Dock issues, yeah.
But then we hit winter, so we can get an update on that. There's also the situation there, and again, we haven't gone through docks yet, where there was a pre-existing dock there that was not likely permitted, that's been there for 20 plus years, maybe long, who knows how long. But it was recently replaced and made I would say significantly larger. So I think that may fall under whatever the commission decides to do with unpermitted sort of legacy decks. We have not yet released guidance on that. We'll get to it one of these meetings, or it can be dealt with through the enforcement process too. It's up to the commission.
So we'll just have Jenna update us to all this status.
Yep.
Ms. Carroll, can you update the commission? Did you?
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Excellent. Jenna Carroll, 44 Rabbith Road. So just want to start off here just by thanking the commission for giving us some grace and patience with this matter. As Matt mentioned, with the departure of Mr. Silva and his replacement, that caused a little bit of a delay in obtaining some of the information we needed for permitting. Additionally, I had some, medical issues, and it resulted in an early arrival of our son. So he's here now, and everything good, but he spent a little bit of an extended stay in the NICU there. So again, just really appreciate your patience and your grace, through some of those challenges there. So originally, I sent in the building permit request, and also sent in what I thought were the correct engineering specs that were requested. Unfortunately, they were not what was needed for the permit. So it's been requested that I work with an engineering firm to make sure that the wall has kind of been built in accordance with engineering specifications. At this time, I've reached out to 3 engineering firms requesting a quote. I've received 1 back so far. I'm expecting the remaining quotes to be shared within the next week or so that we can move forward with engineering there. So I'll pause there for a second. Any questions for me at all, or anything I can clarify? No. Okay. Second piece, I know there was a dock issue. I think we had kind of previously labeled it as the duck dock because it had a little duck house at the end of it. We do have plans to remove this, just waiting for the water temperature to warm up a little bit, because we're gonna have to actually kind of get in the pond to just lift it out. So we do have plans to remove that structure. Should be able to do it hopefully in the next month or so as the water warms up. But we'll absolutely confirm with you guys once that's out of the water. And that's kind of all I have for you guys at the moment.
Any recommendations from the commission?
Well, it seems we would need to wait for some of
See?
that information.
Yeah,
Would we like to give a date certain to hear back?
Matt?
it's up to the commission. I mean,
Well, we'd like to give you a time framework, Ms. Carroll, to get back to us so that this doesn't just get lost in the foggy future. Do you have a time framework you would like to suggest, and we'll take that into consideration?
Sure, where we should have an engineer solidified, like in the next, I would say, week or two. I could at least give you kind of an update on where that stands. I know the next meetings getting really busy for you guys, so I don't know if we want to go to mid-June, to that the next second meeting from now. I can at least give you guys more of an update then.
Would that be acceptable, June 11th?
I guess I would say let's go to second meeting in June and have Jenna just email me pictures when the dock gets removed.
I was gonna ask for the dock to be removed by our June 25th meeting, because we requested that dock to be removed last August.
Yeah.
That would be my.
Yeah, that dog did get requested to be removed, but then there was some concern about environmental impacts there, so we didn't get, I don't think we got actually kind of agreement from you all to move that until it started to get cool out.
Nope.
So,
It was requested in August, then requested in September, and
Okay.
then by November, nothing was removed and was frozen, and then we were told it would be removed in the spring, so I understand it's still cold, so that's why I would ask by our end of June meeting to show proof that it has been removed.
yeah. Thank you for clarifying.
One last thing that I didn't bring up, and I think that I emailed you, Jenna, about this a while ago, but the health department said something about a privy on site, like a outhouse building or something, and I think you said it's not connected at the bottom.
Right, yeah, and Joyce, I'm not gonna be able to say her last name, starts with a K.
Christofowski.
Yes, thank you. She actually came out to the property and looked at it. She hasn't said anything about it at all, but she did come out to the property and take a look. The last thing she did mention to me about it was we might just need to fill in the hole at the, underneath the structure can stay, but just need to kind of fill it in.
Okay.
So, yeah, but it's more kind of, there because it's cute and it's been there for a while. It's not in use at all. So
It could be a she shed.
yeah.
I've never heard a privy called cute before, but yay. If you got a cute one, good for you.
It's a little like half moon on the door. You know,
yeah,
kind of
okay.
cool, so like cartoonish.
So I think based on the notes about the duck dock having been requested to have been removed since last summer, we could put you on for June 25th to come back on this, but it would be, you should have evidence then, by that date, that you've, removed that duck house, and then we can talk about the rest of the matter.
Sure.
But at least that, get that gone by June 25th, come back then, and we will talk to you at that point.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And
Does the
please
commission
reach out
agree
if you
with
guys
that?
have any questions.
Okay, we'll see you then.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, guys.
Take care. And the next matter is 164 Pembroke Street.
I spoke with them a couple hours ago, and they requested continuance to May 28th. There was a sort of an accident injury situation.
Can you tell
So-
them no? June 11th?
I mean, we certainly could push it to June 11th, but
Just that May is getting very, very busy. This is
We
Oh.
need to continue it? Or they requested it, or?
they requested it, and I would say, like, I kind of advised, like, yeah, why don't you not show up tonight? You know, like, I expected, it seemed showing up tonight would be a hardship. So I said, I don't think there's an imminent issue here where it's if they don't take action, we're going to have immediate impacts to resource areas. It's sort of, I think, what happened.
Will this take a long
Happened.
time to discuss this?
I don't know. I mean, there's enough history with this property that you never know how long it's going to go. So personally, I don't see an issue with pushing it back 2 weeks. And if you wanted to push it 2 weeks more beyond that, I don't think I would have much issue with that either.
What does the commission think?
I have to recuse myself from any discussion regarding this, so.
Okay.
I would not want to push it more than 2 weeks.
So you say May 28th?
Yep.
All right,
Just because of the history of the property.
all right. So we'll push that forward to May 28th? All right. Is there anything else?
Minutes and updates.
All right. Minutes and updates. Do we have minutes?
So you just need motions to accept the minutes, is that?
Yeah, I haven't seen the minutes.
Okay, so I will make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Should we specify the
The date,
dates?
want the dates?
Yeah, why not?
Sure, January 22nd, 2025, and February 12th, 2025.
And Kalina, you were.
Can we do them separately? I can't vote on one.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
You were.
Which one can't you vote
absent
on?
February 12th.
I was not here on January 22nd.
All right, so if I move that we accept the minutes of January 22nd, 2025.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Vote on that. Kalina's a yes. Dot?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
All right, those minutes were accepted. Super. Do we have a motion for February?
So I make a motion that we accept the minutes of February 12th, 2025.
Second.
Okay, Kalina was out. Jim?
Yes.
All right, Dot?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
And Marilyn?
Yes.
Okay, those minutes are also voted in. Very good, thank you. And updates?
Yeah, just one update, trying to keep the meeting short. The stormwater BMP at the end of Delano, I went there a couple weeks ago, and somebody had cut down all of the sumac behind the bioretention areas, I assume to improve their view of the river. I have not been able to figure out who did it, to take any action. So my plan, when I can find the time to do it, is to write a letter to all residents of the area within viewshed of that, to inform them that that is not allowed and will be aggressively enforced if we catch anybody doing that.
Again.
Sumac will grow back, but I suspect whoever did it will be looking to hit it again. So, yeah, not ideal.
Okay. Is that it?
It's good for me.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Yay. Second.
Second.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Kalina's a yes. Jim? Dot?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
It's unanimous. See you next time.